Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Captain America Sentinel of Liberty Issue 10. Yeah. Nice cover here, showcasing us dealing with MODOK in his control form, and this was actually a really good issue. And it had a pretty crazy kind of consequence at the end that we'll have to see how it kind of shakes out and everything. So, we had last left off that MODOK was pretty much had our heroes under his control, and we see that he's doing this under the Outer Circle member Powers kind of instructions and everything, and he's pretty much like, I don't care what you do with them, just keep them down. And he's like, oh, what fun, as we see him doing like presents a MODOK production only out for control. So we shift off and we see that he's pretty much having Steve relive Bucky's betrayal moment, and saying that, like, oh yeah, all you have to do is step aside and accept Bucky for who he is. And it's funny, he's like, I can do this all day, but they cut it off right before he can say it. So we then shift over to Sharon Carter, the agent, as we see them dealing with a past kind of part that I'm not that familiar with, that evidently someone's like, okay, the controls are locked, the only way to stop me is to blow them up. Let me see. I'm gone, the controls are locked, the only way to stop me is to blow them up, and that would kill me, and that's not what you do, is it? And Steve's pretty much trying to talk Sharon down, saying that she's a good person. She's like, I'm a soldier captain, that means I'm both. Yes, you're a sin eater, Sharon Carter. How much will you sacrifice so that Captain America can remain clean? Interesting kind of way of attack, but that's a gross mischaracterization of Steve and Sharon's relationship. We shift over now to Roger Aubrey, the Destroyer, as he's pretty much talking with Brian, as they're saying that they love each other and going on their whole kind of history, and they go off into their great love story towards the only end a romance can have, with everyone dead, as he like loses grip with Brian. So now we're to Fury, the soldier, as he is getting made fun of. Like MODOK is using one of the soldiers to laugh that this one dude was dead, that this dude was his friend. He lists all this stuff that he knew about him, that they bunked together first day of boot camp. He couldn't carry a tune. His younger sister was an angel, and he's looking like a line item, and that Fury doesn't like that. And it's like, yeah, nobody should. Calling him furious. Don't waste it on MODOK when the real killers are right over there. The suits that pretty much put them in the way. Fury's like, they didn't fire the bullet, but MODOK then hits with the thing of like, no, they put his head in line with the bullet. And they call themselves commanders, but they're just dogs barking and snarling without two thoughts in their head. They need to be leashed. And this kind of showcases Fury's kind of view on how these kind of things are, but it also showcases MODOK and kind of the Outer Circle's kind of view. Someone needs to be in charge who actually gives a damn. Correct. But then MODOK's like, yeah, and that person needs to grip the leash tight. You think that's you, soldier? Hitting Fury on that kind of note. We shift over to the Redacted, the weapon, and this one's interesting because it's more MODOK kind of talking about him, seeing that like weird kind of experiments, the metal, a Skrull, the Brood, this dude with his head open. He's like, acting out, you say, taking forms you'd rather it not, remembering things that shouldn't, being something when it was meant to be nothing. I'm sure I can do something about that. And he's kind of only the kind of weakest kind of link, but that's because we don't know that much about the Redacted at this moment. So I'm kind of alright with that. And then we shift over to Peggy Carter, the double agent, showcasing that she is one of the star points, and that evidently MODOK didn't do anything with her the last time. Peggy, he's of course expounding upon them being star points. She's saying, spare me, and he's like, oh, I already did. I left you intact when I had my way with your friends last Monday. Imagine my surprise to find you right back in my hands. Let's see. And saying, if you think I'll be kind to you again, I can assure you my largesse has expired. Let's see. He'd been given carte blanche to edit the memories of your lives and stories. Oh, what stories Peggy has. And then brings up Sharon at this speech talking about fireworks and how she had it in her hand and what was kind of going on. And, oh, this is a metaphor, you're going to explode out of my hand. It's like, not me, we're on the same side, or have you forgotten? But you've got Roger Aubrey in here, and that man is only one thing, dynamite. As I really love how that line said, and MODOK's face is like, what? And it's interesting to have this kind of dynamic that Peggy is working as a star point, and how they're kind of having their own missions which are at odds with each other. And of course MODOK thought that was kind of interesting. So we shift over to Lower Manhattan, and we see kind of the AIM guys just like doing kind of techno babble about what they're doing with the Nigonite, and Power's like hoping that the revolution is listening with bated breath to see how your Gambit points out. We see that Bucky is there, and he still has his cat, which I think is a nice little bit to keep added, and saying that Power knows that he left the Nigonite shards for Rogers. May as well had lit a flare, as we see the Power bring out this kind of amulet, and he says he should take some pride in trying to undermine him, and that it was hubris that the mental organism wouldn't be up to the task or whatnot, or that it was naivete, and that he appreciates his efforts, and that he thinks he's really bad at the game. And as he does this thing that's got some kind of like rooms around it, and doing some stuff as it's brought up. And then we see MODOK pretty much asking, shall we begin again, to all of them, and then Roger's like, no. And it's really kind of cool that Roger is the one that kind of breaks through. And I'm not that well versed with this character, but I've loved what I've been learning about him through this run, and especially through what we learn here. And MODOK's like, oh, what? You got your self-awareness and everything? He's like, no, you made your mistake. Because you took the face of the only man I ever loved. And that for decades he's been dead, but he still reminds me every day how far I'm willing to go to resist. You didn't cage me, you foul thing of wire and bone. You inspired me. It's like, yeah. As we then see him transform into his destroyer outfit and persona, breaking through MODOK's control and kind of explaining things. And that where he was raised, fists were more common than forgiveness, and that he was rarely the son that his father wanted, as we see him getting Peggy out and the redacted. I love how these kind of pages are done. They're very different, and they introduce very different kind of flows. I love this introduction and these uses, especially in this, as he's going through and breaking through all the different kind of glass, through the stars and everything. And he's talking about he's not the kind of man to let me live unaware of his disdain, and that when he was 13, he would take him across the acreage of their estate to every tenant on the land, and either beat them for lack of rent payment, or for me for asking to ask why. Shift over to another one, and it explains the story a little bit more, that there was one Mr. Crosswell who made maple candies, and was one of his favorites, but he had a bad crop one year. And he was going to run Crosswell into the ground to teach him a lesson about excuses. And it woke something in Roger. And he didn't understand it until much later, and he never knew how he leapt high enough at 13 to, like, crack his father, and he'd never forget the face as his father tumbled down Mr. Crosswell's stairs. But he know exactly what he saw in old Crosswell's face, of fear my father had instilled, and which with only the bruised knuckles of a 13-year-old boy. As we see him getting Fury and Sharon and Steve out. That he destroyed that fear because he had stood up to what his father was doing, which was wrong. And then, of course, MODOK's like, you think your fists mean anything in here? In my panopticon of the mind? It's like, I just love that they're able to really get MODOK's sense of grandiose sense of importance. And it's funny because Roger's in like, no, I understand where I'm fighting. I'm not fighting you with my fists. I'm hitting you with fearlessness, with compassion, with solidarity, with hope, and with love. And yeah, people could say that that sounds really cliche and trite and everything, but it hits and it makes sense because he has been trying to use all of these things to break Roger and the rest of them. And with what he has seen, him trying to use the man that he loved was a very gross miscalculation on MODOK's part. because that is what he had been fighting for to protect. And with that, it's got these qualities of fearlessness, compassion, solidarity, hope, and love, and that is a big thing. And all of those, he's able to utilize those qualities and those emotions and those kind of essences to fight MODOK's control, which he can't control those things. Because those are important things in people's lives that bring up and provide character for them. And so we see that MODOK cannot control them and is blasted out, and we see Roger being like, that's enough of you then, let's have a little chat, shall we? And it's just really fucking cool. And he's asking, where's the one who sent you? Where's power? And he's like, how did you escape? My mind's been sharpening against the whetstone of fascism for nearly a century. And I'm like, yeah, that's big, man. And now call your master and tell him the invaders are coming for him. This fight is over. As you wish. And then he pretty much just says that the mind has failed, and that Power then talks about calling the other one in to succeed where he had failed, saying that the transition order is confirmed. I am the mental organism, as Roger's telling Sharon to get back, designed only for you know the rest, as he turns from the control MODOK into the kill MODOK and kills Roger the Destroyer. And it sucks because he had saved him out, but it's a powerful, impactful one. Now, granted, it does follow the kind of trope of, hey, we pretty much have him explaining a deep kind of character moment and then having him die, but it's how it's executed and how it's done. Like, I didn't know much about this character in the Destroyer when this series started, and it really impacted me that they decided to have him die in this fashion, and I felt something for it. I'm like, damn, I really like his character. And then it's like, damn, he's gone. And we see Steve he's not happy about it either, and we see Sharon is broken up about it, and then the last panel is his mask broken. And it's like, damn, I really want to see what is going to be happening next. Oh, and it's kind of cool that we see that, like, the writers that are writing here are also doing a Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm sorry, that page for it, just fucking space western, looks badass. Sorry, I know that's not really part of the issue, but that's just kind of cool. So, this, I think, was a really good issue of delving into characters. I mean, Steve, we have the kind of most history and understanding of character, but it's always nice to see him, like, they bring up the important stuff that's happened in this arc and use that and see how he's kind of dealing with it. Sharon, how she views her relationship with Steve, Redacted kind of getting a little bit more into him, even though we don't have much. Fury on how he views kind of authority and how his kind of goals are. Peggy, who's actually a star point in doing her own kind of missions, and how that could be against what the power player is doing, and how MODOK is more under his control. And Roger getting more kind of information on him and his whole kind of spiel with Brian and with his father, and how he learned to stand up to those who abuse their power and try to use kind of fascistic techniques and everything, and how he fought against it, and really laying out what he was doing against MODOK. I think it was very effective, at least for me, and I know it might not work out for other people, but I really enjoyed it for what we saw here and what I learned about the character, and it actually made the end scene with his death more impactful. Now, how will the death stick? It's always comics, and there's always stories, and there's always other kind of resurrection kind of things that can pop up. So I understand that, but it still gives me at least enough of the moment of being like, damn, I like that I learned about this character, and that he tried to help somebody at the end, and that Sharon feels affected by it, Steve feels affected by it. We'll have to see how this affects the invaders going forward. So, those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.